Welcome to Carlton's Math Corner. Today we are going to continue our study on slope-intercept form. At this time, please make sure that you have your math journal, vocab packet, as well as something to write with. Today our target is I can write equations of lines in slope-intercept form given the slope and 1 point. Okay, so let's make some observations. What steps do you notice? Well, I notice that up here, I am given slope, because remember M stands for slope, and then I am given an ordered pair, and that is a point on a coordinate grid. So if I think of slope-intercept form, I know that it's y equals, and then mx plus b. So y equals mx plus b. Now I'm going to underline that because I want to make sure that I remember this formula. So y equals mx plus b is slope-intercept form. Remember, this is slope. That's what m stands for, and b stands for y-intercept, or where the line crosses the y-axis. So let's get, first of all, I notice that the -7, it's in red, and I notice that it was plugged into the equation, and since it represents slope, it was plugged into the spot where slope is. So I'm assuming that's going to be step number 1 then. So we plug in slope, and then step number 2, I notice that this -2 and this 3 is now in green, and I notice that it was plugged in for x and y. Now remember, an ordered pair stands for the x-coordinate and a y-coordinate. So x-coordinate is always the first coordinate, and then the y-coordinate is the second one. So notice that -2 went in for x, so it was substituted in. And so instead of x now I have -2, and notice there's parentheses around it because I want to make sure that it is separate from the -7. This means when they're next to each other that it's multiplication. So that's why there's parentheses around here, so that I can see that they're next to each other. And this isn't 72, this is -7 times -2. And then notice the 3 was plugged in for the y, because that is our y-coordinate. So it looks like once everything's plugged in, then we just simplify down so that we find what b is, or remember, that's our y-intercept. So it looks like our next step was to do the order of operations and multiplications first. So -7 times -2 is 14. And now we have an equation, and now we need to just solve for b. And so 14 plus something is 3. And one way to do that, remember, is to do the inverse operation. So if we do 3 minus 14, we get -11. And -11 plus 14 is 3. So I guess that is our y-intercept. And I noticed that the last step is to rewrite that slope-intercept form. So we have y equals -7x, because that was already given to us. And then we found that y-intercept is -11, so that was plugged in. Now, it can also, though, be written in a different way. If I write it as -7x minus 11, that actually is the same as y equals -7 plus a -11. Because remember, subtraction is the same as adding additional negatives. So this is the same as this answer. So both ways are correct. I will say that this last way right here is in simplest form though. Okay, so I would prefer to see it in that way. Okay, so let's go over what steps did we do? Well, we plugged in the slope into the slope-intercept equation. And then second step, we plug in the x and the y coordinates. Third step, we solve for b. And remember, we always use the inverse operation to solve for that. And then the last step was to write it in slope-intercept form. And we found that the best way to write it is to write it with the minus 11 to show that it's in simplest form. Okay, so what I would like you to do is I want you to try these 4 questions or these 4 problems. Will you please write these in slope-intercept form? And then tomorrow I'll take any questions and we'll go over it. Thank you so much for joining me at Carlton's Math Corner, and I look forward to meeting with you again.